Hello and welcome to Fin24. Today we're speaking to Derek Ferreira. He is the Head of Product Management and Marketing Integration at Old Mutual Personal Finance. That's a mouthful, Derek. What do you really do?
What I really do is I try and make sure that our consumers, our advisors, are able to integrate the technicalities of product solutions and the general insurance jargon out there into a language that they understand and they can actually use and consume to be of financial help to themselves going forward.
And also carry over to the consumers who are buying the financial products.
Absolutely. It's for people to make sense of.
The Old Mutual Savings Monitor has really been very impressive with how comprehensively it has looked at savings and all its contributing factors. It really, in 2017, there were some very key takeouts. What has the Savings and Investment Monitor shown to be the broad impression of savings in metropolitan areas? What have been the key takeouts in that?
Well, certainly the key takeout this year has been that the consumers' confidence in making financial decisions and the general confidence in their own financial situations has slightly increased, albeit back at the levels of 2014, but there's a trend that the confidence levels are increasing.
And the impressions are obviously linked to confidence in the South African economy, and from the Savings and Investment Monitor, we see that it is at 34%, which is keeping in line with what it was in 2016. Derek, how does consumer confidence impact financial decisions, specifically savings?
I think what we've seen so far is that from a household perspective, the consumer confidence is making own decisions. That's what we have seen. The level of debt is actually decreased.
That's fantastic.
Now, that to me is great news. I think to all of us, it's great news. And it could speak to people seeing that, yes, I am still, in our findings were in our research, they are still under financial stress. They are still struggling to make ends meet at the end of the month, from month to month. And what we found in the research is people will go to family and friends for loans.
Yeah.
But the positive side is either those loans are called in earlier or people are trying to pay the loans off faster.
Which that also points to a mindset shift. It really does also point to the fact that people are wanting to get their debt done earlier.
That certainly is what it's pointing to, absolutely yes.
And that's never a bad thing.
Never, I don't think so. I think Warren Buffett coins a phrase, there's good debt and there's bad debt.
Sure.
Good debt he defines as debt incurred to acquire an asset, like property.
Yeah.
Very few people can buy a house bond-free. And I think that is a perfect example of good debt.
If consumers are plagued by uncertainty and lack of confidence in making financial decisions, which obviously there still is, consumers are still intimidated by financial jargon. Consumers still do not understand exactly what every product entails. Consumers still are asking questions or wanting to ask questions. Does this then not point to the scenario where every South African consumer should then be speaking to some sort of financial expert, some sort of financial advisor who can guide them, who can assist them in navigating these financial waters?
Absolutely. I think in simple terms, there's no better advice in getting advice.
True.
I think that's the first thing. Don't wish it away. If you're in a financial stress and you're not sure what's the next best decision, is to actually get financial advice. Equip yourself with knowledge. Be it reading, be it conversation.
Ask the questions.
Ask the questions. If you're not sure, tell people I'm not sure. But don't go in and fall for the trap. There are no get-rich-quick schemes, and be mindful of dealing with really accredited financial advisors and institutions. I think those are key things in the situation you're painting now.
I also think that people need to feel secure when they are speaking to people who are giving them financial advice, and therefore probably the first step in that security is to make sure that people are accredited, that people are actually in the position to give you the correct advice.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that, according to the Financial Advisor Intermediary Services Act, every accredited financial advisor has certain disclosures to make to customers.
Yes.
And I think at a departure point, and to the point we're discussing, ask the person you're speaking to, are you an accredited financial advisor?
You have the right.
That's a very simple question to start off with, and from there you can take the conversation forward.
Derek, still staying with the Savings and Investment Monitor, we are moving on to the percentage of income spend. We see that spending on living consumption is at about 62% and in savings at 15%. Is that ratio correct?
15%, many years ago people thought 15% would be sufficient. Well, let's qualify that. Assuming you start in day one of your working career, assuming the discipline is there and you maintain that contribution every single year, people get salary increases, inflation-linked salary increases. Do you actually increase your savings ratio accordingly? If not, and how people have fallen behind over years, there's a general feel nowadays that people should contribute as much as 30% towards their savings. So the savings ratio at the moment, don't underestimate the amount of capital you require at retirement.
So the idea is more into savings?
It's not so much how much you save, it's more how long you save for. And that's where you get the benefit. People talk about the compounding effect of interest or a compounding effect of growth. In simple terms, that is where your money work harder than you.
Also, we're then going back to what we need to be teaching, that start saving from as early as possible.
Early as possible for as long as possible.
Something else that the Savings and Investment Monitor looked at was public versus private sector income spend. And it does show that there is a slightly higher percentage on debt repayment by those in the public sector as opposed to those in the private sector. What does that indicate? What is that an indication of?
Well, the research suggests that they are more indebted. So one could perhaps ascribe this to the fact that we need to understand the public sector generally are earning higher salaries as opposed to the private sector, which means they're more exposed to, or they would qualify for secured loans for credit more easily. So that's one suggestion from the results here. And that's perhaps why one could describe that slightly higher debt ratio in the public sector as opposed to the private sector.
Derek, in conclusion, you have been in the financial industry for many years. You've done the research, you've done whatever needed to be done to gain as much information as possible. What is the best piece of financial advice that you would give?
Oops, it's a difficult question. Obviously one can't give focused advice according to the Financial Advisors Act, yes. But in general, a consideration and factors to consider for a consumer out there. I think first and foremost, review your budget, your expense budget. And people talk about the economy, the world economy, the global economy. I'm more worried about my economy, i.e. my income, my expenses.
So we should start looking at our household and our household budget as our economy?
Absolutely. And they consider and think about, okay, so where can I cut back on my expenses? And you'll be shocked to find how many of them are unnecessary expenses or luxury items. Warren Buffett coins a phrase, he says, stop dealing with your wants and focus on your needs. Yeah. I think if you remove the wants out of it, we all need transport to go to work, but we want the top of the range motor vehicle. I think that's one simple example.
Yes.
And there's many such examples. One could, do we all need the biggest flat screen television set, or just we need to watch television broadcasts on any other TV? Yeah. Or television set. And I think those are examples of dealing with your needs and wants, and how easily one could review your budget. how many cell phones are there in your household?
Yeah. Is it necessary?
My 3-year-old nephew sitting with a cell phone to play games, the airtime, the cost of a unit. Those are the sort of questions one starts asking. And then how do you direct that expense to the necessary savings mechanism to create?
That's also very true. It doesn't help that we cut down somewhere, but we are not then doing something constructive with the savings that we have taken from where we've cut down from.
It's where do you channel that money towards to build up that nest egg? And I'm going back, don't underestimate the amount of capital required at retirement. Because one of the findings also refers to longevity, how your medical research science has actually improved longevity of people. If you think you're retiring, people are retiring sooner and they're living longer. So your capital has to last longer than you do. I think that's a general essence.
I think that if anything today, I've learned that I am the Minister of Finance of my own economy.
Absolutely. The Minister of Finance, he assumes ownership of the economy. And where does it start? With the annual budget review. And I think that's back to the point we made.
So review your budget, take ownership, and ask the questions.
And then, once you've done that, set your goals, your targets, and prioritize.